This is what I'm trying to say when you and I talk about eye contact and talking about how sometimes the sexiest thing is not necessarily seeing the sex, although the sex was pretty choice, and we'll get into that. It can just be the intensity of people standing across a room from one another, breathing each other in, and feeling so physically drawn to them that the chemistry just explodes. I'm very on board. I hit my plant to make this point, and it was worth it.
Was it lust or just good blocking? Was that moan from joy or mocking? The towel stayed on, but the tension was thick. Was it sexy or just a camera trick? From kisses to caresses, we're breaking down the yeses. Faking it with Ariel and Morgan.
Hi, I'm Ariel Lee Cohen.
Hey, I'm Morgan Smith.
And we are the hosts of Faking It with Ariel and Morgan.
We are two intimacy coordinators here to talk about the spicy scenes you see in film and TV. Oh my God, I saw Feelin last night.
Oh my God, wait, I haven't seen it yet, so don't tell me anything I shouldn't know, but I'm so excited.
It was so good.
Oh, yes, of course it was. I'm so excited to see
I'm
it.
really excited to hear your thoughts. I'm not going to spoil a thing.
Good.
I went to a screening last night that had a lot of gay leather men there, and
Yay.
it was amazing. Like, they were so into it, and having like that be the predominant group in the audience was amazing because they caught on to so many little things. The movie covers gay motorcycle culture in England. I feel like people really responded to it. I was responding to it, but people who like know the culture were like, yeah, they got that part. And they're like picking up on all these little cues. It was so nice.
This just fills my heart. Queer content, BDSM content, and Alexander Skarsgård. Like, I am in, my friend.
Yeah, I love Alexander Skarsgård. He's such a little weirdo character actor who's just trapped in a leading man's body, and I'm obsessed.
I know. I love this vibe for him. I love this BDSM-y, leathery skirt vibe that he's wearing on red carpets for Pillion. I'm like, yes.
All about it.
I'm as excited to see Pillion as I'm excited to see Wuthering Heights, because I feel like that's going to be a trip. Tell me your
Here's the
thoughts.
thing. So I have not read the book, so I can't come at this from the academic perspective. I've heard the complaints of people who've read the book, especially my wife.
Yeah, that he's a person of color and they cast Jacob Elordi.
Yeah.
I love BDSM media. And I think that taking Wuthering Heights and making it a story about BDSM, which is my assumption is what's happening, sounds really interesting to me, because in the book, in the story, the characters are horrible to each other. And it makes sense from a power dynamic perspective to kind of shift that. I do feel, though, that they should have chosen a person of color. It's a big point in the story that he is supposed to be othered. And the fact that Jacob Elordi, he has Basque, Spanish history in his ancestry, I don't think it's enough to showcase. Like,
Spanish is
he's
still
supposed to be Romani or
European.
something.
Like, yeah.
But he's supposed to be
sort of dark.
mixed race.
Like,
yeah, he's supposed to be dark in a questionable sense.
Right. He's ambiguous, but dark. Like, casting Othello as a white person, it just takes so much out of the story. And it's like, that was essential to the character. Yeah. This is the wrong kind of colorblind casting.
I agree with you. I am not happy about that at all.
And today we're covering Insecure. Woo!
I have to say, I'm a little insecure about this.
I have to say up top, I had such a hard time choosing scenes because Insecure has such a great range of types of intimate scenes, and it does them so well. But the thing I really wanted to highlight today about Insecure is how great it is at showing scenes that are absolutely hilarious and almost slapstick, and then also has intimate scenes that are fully romantic and sensual and have a totally different vibe. I don't think there are a lot of television shows that have that range that they pull off so well.
Well, I think this is a good moment to reveal to you that I have not seen this show before.
Oh
I've been meaning to. Like, it's been on my list for so long. It just, everything keeps popping up. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to not watch it. I'm just going to see what I'm going to see. I'm going to be like our beautiful audience here and just witness.
Yeah. I love that. I never want to pressure people to watch anything because there's like too much to watch and too many good things to watch. So I'm really excited you haven't seen this. Are you familiar with the show in general, like the basic premise, or?
No.
Okay.
I've seen the poster.
Okay. All right. So I'll give you like general context for the show, and then the more specific context for these scenes will fill that in a bit. So just so you know, this show is about a character called Issa D, played by Issa Rae. She is living in and from Inglewood and Los Angeles. The show is really a love story to Los Angeles and specifically that area, kind of in the same way that like Sex and the City is a love story to New York City. In season 1, we see her in a relationship with her boyfriend, Lawrence. They've been together for 5 years. They're living together. Their relationship hasn't been great for a while. Lawrence has been really depressed as he's been trying to find work for a number of years unsuccessfully. Their relationship has suffered, and Issa ends up cheating on him with a guy she had a crush on from high school, I believe. They break up. Things fall apart. We also follow Issa and her best friend, Molly. A lot of people argue that's like the real love story of the show because it centers their friendship so much. We're going to talk about 2 scenes from season 4. So a lot of time has passed.
A lot of time has passed, it seems. Yeah.
Issa has left the original job she had. In season 4, we see Issa finally pursuing her passion. Things have really started moving since she met Condola, a PR rep who recently put on her own successful event. And just when Issa thought their relationship was moving from colleagues to besties, she finds out the new guy Condola is dating is Issa's ex/soulmate, Lawrence, whom Condola met at the same baby shower where Issa met her. Immediately after finding this out, Issa imagines Condola and Lawrence getting to know each other at the shower.
Okay.
Yeah, it's juicy. So this is from Insecure Season 4, Episode 1, titled Lowkey, Feelin Myself. It was released April 12th, 2020. We're going to see Issa Rae as Issa D, Jay Ellis as Lawrence Walker, and Christina Elmore as Condola Hayes. The series was created by Issa Rae and Larry Wilmore. Showrunner is Prentice Penny. This episode was written by Issa Rae, directed by Kevin Bray, and was intimacy coordinated by Mia Schechter.
Ooh!
So time code is -2203 to about -2116.
They make it so hard to know how far into the episode
I know.
I think it's interesting that media streamers and things, they always put how much time is left in the episode rather than how far into it you are, which I think psychologically is a little bit fascinating because it's kind of like how long until I'm on to the next thing versus how far into this am I.
So it looks like at about 11:53 is the time code in positive.
She's looking around.
This is at the baby shower.
Yeah, we're hearing some moaning, some groaning. Oh, okay. So they're simulating sex on the couch with her on top. Now they're simulating sex, and we can see male rear nudity against the window door. And I think we're implying nudity for her. And then she's wearing a skirt and a tag out of her shirt while they simulate sex above the table of food. Pop the tags. Hilarious. And she's just kind of watching them as they look at her, and they knock the cake over, and she is out of that moment. I was like, oh my God, this is happening. I said, this is happening. It's so bad.
It's so much. We can also, it's so short. We can watch it again if you want to see it again.
I think we do, because I think I need to react to it more. I think I literally was like, I just need to say every single thing that's happening.
That's fine. That's fine.
Baby shower. 8 a.m. Eating a chip. So the moaning sounds are good. I don't know if I believe the movement of pelvises. Her dress is a little too under her tailbone. And here, I am not 100% sure on the story of the dress. I guess it's moved down to her waist. Rear nudity for him. And once again, the skirt's kind of in the way of the simulated sex, and their movements don't match perfectly, but this is... The pop the tags is amazing. Just the aggressiveness, the cake falling. Stunning. Stunning. On one hand, you know me and the authenticity of the moment stuff where I'm like, the skirt's too low and the skirt's too low again. At the same time, it seems like, and from the context that this is her imagining them together from several different angles, so it really doesn't need to be realistic. It just needs to be what she might imagine it would look like. It can be wrong, honestly. And so I am once again on board.
It had always bothered me, especially in the last bit of the fantasy sequence, or I guess nightmare sequence, where her maxi skirt is fully down. And I'm like, okay, they're clearly not having sex, but then the show is so intentional, and especially because they had an intimacy coordinator working on this specific scene, I'm like, that's a choice. This scene's almost cartoonish in how ridiculous it is, and the fact that they're like openly having this much, not graphic, but just very explicit sex. It almost feels cartoonish. The sex doesn't have to look that realistic because it's more about how it makes Issa feel.
It definitely shows across Issa's face. The most intense moment is pop the tags moment, which I can't get over and will never be over, apparently, that they're wearing the same shirt. So my assumption is that there are tags on the shirt or something like that.
At the beginning of the scene, we see that Issa's wearing a lot more designer clothing, but she's affording it because she just keeps returning it and exchanging it for something else. And so when she sees Condola in this and she's popping the tags right before it, Lawrence says something to her to the equivalent of like, I bet you can afford full price for these clothes. And she goes, true. And then she's like, pop the tags.
I love it. I love the audacity of her imagination, that it's not just they're having sex on the couch. They're implying nudity in front of a giant window door. No one else is in this imagining moment, but it's so public and so present. And she keeps making eye contact with Condola. And then they are literally over all the snacks and the food at like this baby shower, which is such like a prim and proper type event. I love the messiness of it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I love that phrase that you use, the audacity of her imagination, because I think that's so true throughout the series. Is very often we see what's going on in Issa's head, whether she's talking to herself in the mirror or she's imagining something because of her insecurities. And I think this is one really great example.
This is a perfect example of insecurity and anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
I love the movement between the two pelvises. It's so quick, so intense. She's bouncing on top of him. He's bouncing against her. I wonder if they used like a Pilates ball or something, because the bounce is prominent.
They either used a Pilates ball or maybe the actress who plays Condola just has a lot of lower body strength and is able to achieve that on her own. I would imagine a deflated yoga ball would have helped a lot, because that's a lot to do.
Any kind of yoga ball or anything with bounce, yoga mats and stuff, they don't have like a lot of rubbery, what's the word I want? I guess the word is bounce. Like, they don't have a lot of bounce to them. If you think about the mechanics of this, without a ball, if she's straddled over him and he's lying down on the couch, she would need to use her upper thigh muscles and her core muscles to both keep her back straight and to keep bouncing up and down on him. That's going to be exhausting after a couple of minutes, unless she's pretty jacked.
Yes.
You know?
Do you want to go to the second scene?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so second scene we're going to talk about is also from season 4, episode 8, titled Lowkey Happy. This was released May 31st, 2020. Some time has passed after Condola asked Lawrence if he and Issa would have broken up if Issa hadn't cheated on him. He hesitates. They break up. Later, Lawrence asks Issa to grab drinks. Their drinks turn into dinner, which turns into a beautiful date where they reconnect. At the end of the night, they're back at Lawrence's place. While Issa uses the bathroom, Lawrence takes a call from Condola about meeting up later. Issa overhears, but instead of leaving, she asks what would happen if she wanted to stay. Issa Rae is Issa D, Jay Ellis as Lawrence Walker, showrunner series creators are the same. This episode was written by Natasha Rothwell, directed by Ava Burkowski. There's no IC credited for this episode. So right here, we're at about 25:17.
There's a lot of tension and a lot of eye contact, and the breath is really interesting. It's very stilted, very stuck in the body. Oh, look! Oh my gosh. See, nothing is happening, but you can feel these threads of energy that's pulling the two of them together like a rubber band, and that reads so well on camera. It's a note I give all my actors, basically. Coming in with the music. Yes. A big held breath in the chest before approaching him. Looking at lips, looking at eyes. A hesitant touch to the face and then kissing, and I love it. Oh my goodness. It's keeping the passion, but she's starting to remove the shirt. So we're already into this. So now they're in the bed, and she is implying nudity so far above clavicle. We see his buttocks again, her hand slowly gliding up the musculature of his back. Seeing him kiss down her ribcage and stomach. Oh, he removes her underwear. Okay. This is good. This is great. This is exciting. Oh, okay, so they're flipping, and now she's on top. We didn't have an insertion moment. We're just sort of already inside, but now he's sitting up. This is also a very difficult position to do. When he's sitting up and she's straddled over him to maintain that distance, it's tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough. Great! I loved it.
I'm so glad you were so enthusiastic about it without having gone through the whole journey of the, like, will they, won't they, of Lawrence and Issa.
The energy between them is crackling.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm trying to say when you and I talk about eye contact and talking about how sometimes the sexiest thing is not necessarily seeing the sex, although the sex was pretty choice, and we'll get into that. It can just be the intensity of people standing across a room from one another, breathing each other in, and feeling so physically drawn to them that the chemistry just explodes. Very on board. I hit my plant to make this point, and it was worth it. How is it watching it for you again?
The second they kiss, I remember watching this for the first time and cheering, and they haven't been back together for so long. And this whole episode is my favorite episode of the show, one of my favorite episodes of television. The entire episode is this date between the two of them. It almost feels like a one-act play. There's so much buildup between the two of them throughout the episode that's coming to this moment. And then when they finally kiss, I'm like, yes!
I felt exactly what you're talking about because of the smallest thing. As she was walking close to him, she went, and just, I don't know if the internet can hear my breath, but a breath that gets stuck in the body. It is the I am being brave and I am sexually attracted to you breath. And I feel it's so powerful. And then the second she gets to him, it's not even like they put their arms around each other immediately. They both just feel like they both want to touch each other. He's looking at her lips. He's looking at her eyes, which is a beautiful tactic. I call it the V, where you go eye, lips, eyes. I heard someone on set the other day call it eyes, trunk, eyes. And I think the trunk is supposed to be the neck, maybe?
Oh, was it a werewolf project?
It wasn't.
Oh.
So I don't really understand, but
okay. Sure.
Listen, you know what? I think ultimately, like, when you are sexually attracted to somebody, you will both show them your and look at their vampire points, which I think we've talked about in the past, maybe. Vampire points or just your arteries. The parts that you would normally keep hidden are the most sensual parts. So that'd be your neck, inner thighs, your wrists. You would showcase that, or you would look to it in order to portray that sexual interest. But I think he did it so beautifully. It wasn't flicker. It was a prominent looking at the eyes and then allowing the eyes to come down to her lips and then allowing them to come back up. And then by that point, they're like an inch apart. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect transition into the spice scale.
I think that's great because I have so much to say that's not just about the pregnant pauses, and that is about the simulated sex act that happens later in the moment.
Yes, let's get into it.
Welcome to the spice scale, our not so scientific way of rating intimacy scenes based on consent and power dynamics, technical craft and coordination excellence, and heat factor. Bum, bum, bum. Each category gets a score from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest. Then we add it all up to give the scene a final letter grade. So we start off with consent and power dynamics, how the scene depicts consent and power in the story, and if known, behind the scenes.
I was doing research. I couldn't find behind the scenes information on them. So what we have to go off of is the power dynamic depicted in the characters and the fact that we do know that Issa is both the creator and star of the show. I also happen to know that she had a really close relationship with Jay Ellis that developed throughout the show. I think he gave her away at her wedding in real life, or like they're really tight.
Aww.
Yeah.
In the first scene, the power dynamics are actually really interesting because it's in her mind. So she is the one in power in that scene, although it would feel the opposite way. It feels like this is happening to her and that she is a victim in the situation where they're having sex in front of her, that she has no control in her situation, which is really just that insecurity there.
She and Condola have been working together for a little bit. And from early on in them working together, Condola mentions like, oh, I started dating this new guy. And Issa's like, oh, how are things going with that new guy? And then she finds out, oh, wait, new guy is my guy. It's my old guy. And you met at the same place I met you. Like, how did I miss this? And it sucks because she knows Condola and really likes her. You can't even dismiss her and think, oh, well, she sucks or she is whatever. She's like, oh, Condola's amazing. Damn it.
It feels layered, even for me watching this sort of out of context in a general sense.
Issa's finally getting to a place where she has found her path and she's in the early stages of becoming the person that she wants to be. Condola feels like someone who's already in that place and is helping her get to that place. So not only is Lawrence with this other person who's awesome, but it's almost like Lawrence is with the slightly more evolved version of Issa. And we see that with the joke of like, I bet you can afford these clothes and you can take the tags off.
Pop the tags.
Pop the tags, which like, even without the full context of what Issa's going through, like we can relate. I know the significance of taking the tags off.
It means you own it. You have to pay for it.
You can pay for it. And I also like that in that whole sequence, it does feel like Issa's rendering of Condola is the one in control. You know, at first she is on top of Lawrence. When we see her up against the sliding glass door, we don't see Lawrence's face. We see Condola's face all the time. She's looking right at Issa. Even when she's bent over on the table later and they're knocking over the cake, she still feels like the one in power and the one leading this. And Lawrence is kind of there to serve her. At one point, he even says, "Do I serve you?" So it really is like Condola is dominating this scene.
Perfectly done. I'm going to give that a 5. I'm going to give consent and power dynamics a 5.
5 out of 5.
Technical craft and coordination excellence, the staging, film coverage, modesty, protection, choreography, and overall execution of the scene. You can never see modesty garments. Really angled beautifully all the time. So great job on that. However, the skirts were a problem for me the entire time in that first scene. And the bounce was a little bouncy. And I know they had an intimacy coordinator, and you can tell the difference between the realism of that second scene when they're having the simulated sex and they're sort of shifting positions and he is sitting up and holding her in his arms and they're just connecting in this very significant way versus the other scene where they're just flopping all over the place.
Yeah.
I also want to bring up just the coordination of handling this window moment where you are simulating sex and you can see outdoors. Now it's tough because you can have a big backyard with giant fences, and then you can have a neighbor who decides that today is the day they're going to build something in their backyard and they just happen to glance over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, as far as the choreography goes, it is so interesting because I'm going to call it the nightmare sequence, because it is not her fantasy. The nightmare sequence had an intimacy coordinator, and then the one where she and Lawrence get together didn't. All of the moments where Condola's skirt is clearly covering her lower half and is preventing penetration was a conscious choice as opposed to a mistake. And perhaps also the flapping around and the bad rhythm might have also been a choice. If that was a choice, then what's behind the choice? Because they wanted to make sure that we still got the comedy of the scene and the point of the scene. They didn't want the sex to look too realistic, because then we might get distracted by the sex and miss out on Condola locking eyes with Issa and the funny things that they're saying that are eating at her insecurities.
I do think it's fascinating, though, that they only used an intimacy coordinator for the nightmare scene and not for the second one, because I feel like the second one is so stylized. And they did a great job without an intimacy coordinator. It looks very realistic. The movement makes mostly sense. There's like some stuttered moments, I think, that could be a little smoother, but they're overall really beautifully done, and they hide everything they need to hide.
I really loved the decision to have Issa move to be on top of Lawrence, and then their final position where he's also sitting up and they're holding each other and we see Issa's face, because we know, like, this is something she has been wanting for almost the entire show. She's been wanting to reunite with Lawrence. Like, she didn't cheat on him because she fell out of love with him. It was a bad decision at a time where she was feeling undesired and lacking in the relationship. I love that we see her finally get this love. We see them embrace. We see that tenderness between the two of them. And I think that's also something the show does really well, is we don't have a lot of examples of tender and joyous Black love in film and TV, especially during intimate scenes. And I really appreciate that this show does that, and it does it so well in this scene in particular.
That's really interesting, too, because I feel like in a lot of media, when one person cheats on the other and they eventually get back together, it often feels like they make the person who was cheated on the person in power in the scene, because they're trying to get the power back kind of thing, or trying to even out the score. And I thought that this was so beautifully done, even more so now knowing that, because they are on the same playing field. He's on top, then she's on top, and then he meets her where she is. And I think that that's really beautiful, because they are entering into whatever stage they're getting into now with their relationship. It is on equal footing. It seems to be in a place of forgiveness and in a place of acceptance. And I think that's really beautiful.
I really appreciate how much of the story you're picking up on just from these two scenes. And obviously I give you a little bit of context, but there's so many little things you're picking up on. Like, earlier in this episode is the first time we hear Lawrence's side of things from that time in their relationship. And he's come a long way in his journey about processing how things ended between the two of them. He basically says to her, not only do I forgive you, but I also take some ownership in our relationship falling apart. And I think we don't often see that in stories about affairs, especially between younger people. And I love that, you could pick up on that just from the scene that we watched.
I think it speaks to how successful it is in its endeavor, During the nightmare scene, it's a lot of kind of babbling at each other and then pop the tags. And then in the second scene, all the lines come before they even get into the bedroom, and then it's pretty quiet, actually. Really beautiful.
Yeah.
For coordination excellence, I hear you. I want to give it a 4, though.
Okay. Should we talk a little more specifically about heat factor, the level of erotic charge or sexual tension in the scene? I know we've covered this a little bit already.
I am very distracted by the inauthenticity of the first the nightmare scene. Every comedy we watch, I talk about this, and I'm like, it's not realistic. And then we're like, but that serves the story, which it does. Hot? Kind of, a little bit. I think there was an erotic charge and sexual tension. I think the second scene, sexual tension, was insanity. You could cut that sexual tension with a knife. Just so thick and visceral.
I think it is so interesting when we talk about comedic sex scenes. Not every scene is trying to be hot. And not every scene is trying to give you an erotic charge. I think part of the joke for this scene is that there is some erotic charge between Lawrence and Condola, right? Because if the sex they're having doesn't feel like it has any eroticism to it, then like what is Issa jealous of? So even though they're flapping against each other and it's ridiculous and her skirt is down, like there's still some hotness to it. Otherwise she'd be able to write it off, right? Or it's a different kind of fantasy, but that's not the story. I think it's intentional. I think they're aiming for it to be like a 3 on the erotic scale. Because if it's too hot, then it's her thinking about them in a different way and it's not as comedic a scene. If it's not hot enough, then it's almost her looking down on them because this is her imagination and she's imagining that their sex is not good. So I feel like it kind of has to be a 3 for the joke to work.
Then I'm wondering if we should change the parameters of heat factor in our spice scale.
Yeah.
In that it's the level of erotic charge and sexual tension, but is it successful in promoting how hot it's supposed to be? More so than how hot is it? You know, because if it's not trying to be hot and we give it a low score, I make as much sense.
I agree. I think we had a similar conversation around consent and power dynamics where we're like, well, if the story they're telling is not consensual, but that was their intent, then it's more like, what are they aiming for and are they executing that effectively?
So then if that's the case, I think they were very, very successful in their heat factor. Just really curated. Yeah. And so I give it a 5.
Woo!
Yes. Which, of course, leads us to an A. I feel like this is like our 4th A in a row. I think we're just having a great time with all these great scenes.
Yes, we've talked about so many great scenes, but they're all great in such different ways.
That is very true. And this one was really interesting. And you showed 2 scenes that have completely different vibes. And I think that it was a fascinating dichotomy.
Thank you. Because I'm like, I can't choose one scene to talk about from Insecure because that doesn't accurately represent what the show does. And I was like, I have to show at least 2 sides.
Then maybe we have to do more Insecure at some time in the future.
Oh my God, I would love, like, as I was doing this, I was thinking of all these other scenes and I was like, ooh, that would be good to talk about this and that would be good to talk about that.
And I mean, there's so many other projects we still need to cover. Like, our list, you guys, is so long. And if you join our Patreon, you can give us recommendations. But beyond that,
for $1.
For $1. Yeah, but we could definitely revisit this. I am very intrigued, and now I think Insecure is moving up my show list for me a little bit.
Oh my God, yes. I think this show does such a gorgeous job of humanizing its characters. One of the things that made her web series that the show was based on, Awkward Black Girl, so revolutionary and resonated so well with people was because it was showing a Black girl being awkward and not having to like be cool or being any of the archetypes that we usually throw onto Black female characters. And it's one of the few comedies that balances these like beautiful romantic scenes with these hilarious physical comedy scenes in the same show. Sex and the City has a lot of really hilarious scenes. I can't think of as many beautiful romantic scenes that are like this, you know? And that's hard to pull off without feeling like you're in a different show.
I think that's a really good point, yeah.
We have a plug. We recently spoke to the host of the Indie Film Podcast with Chuck Norton and Victoria Horn. We had a really
Yeah.
cool conversation with them about intimacy coordinating, specifically as it relates to independent filmmaking, that I really enjoyed.
They were really interesting to chat with, and I
Yeah.
think their podcast is really, really good, particularly if you're making independent film, but definitely give them a listen. They're going to make a podcast episode, including the information we chatted about, so keep an eye out for that. By the time this comes out, it's probably out, so go give it a listen.
Indie
That's
film
the
podcast.
Indie Film Podcast. Shall we credit this bitch?
Let's credit this bitch.
Thanks so much for listening to Faking It. Morgan did this episode's research and wrote the context.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every other hump day, Wednesday.
If this was good for you, the best way to support our show is to follow the podcast and leave a quick rating or review like this one from our listener, Frantical. I haven't seen all of these movies, but now I want to watch them. Ariel and Morgan are spot on. Everyone should listen to this podcast. It brings a whole new light to intimacy coordination. So thank you, Frantical.
Thanks, Frantical. Tell one friend who loves spicy movie secrets about us. Find us on social media at Faking It the Pod.
Want to get involved? Head to patreon.com/fakingitthepod. For just $1, you can request scenes for us to break down. For $10, you get bonus content and never-before-seen footage. And for $5, you get a shout-out like these listeners. Thank you, Lee and Kiki Brown.
This episode was produced by Ariel Lee Cohen, social media and branding by Morgan Smith. Our theme song is Faking It by Suno AI. Credits for the film or show we reacted to are in the episode caption. Stay real, fakers.